Hi, my name is Sarah Freshly and welcome back to Freshly Read Books. So today I have something super exciting. I am basically using a TBR game to pick my February TBR. You're probably familiar at this point with TBR Games. There's a lot of people on YouTube that do them to pick their TBR every month. And they're one of my favorite videos to watch. They might actually be my favorite kind of booktube video to watch. Like, they're the ones that when they come up, I click on them instantly. Whereas a lot of times, like the reviews, I'm like, I'll accumulate several reviews for different books and then I'll watch those in a row later. But like a TBR video is like, if that's up, I'm watching it. So I always look forward to the beginning of every month to be able to watch all of those. Mine for this month is going to be a little bit late because typically I don't film a TBR video, and I wasn't planning on doing this already for February. I was planning on waiting until March, but I'm too excited. It's February 1st. We're filming it today, hoping to get it up real quickly. And I'm going to basically be trying to create a TBR game from a game I already own. So I love watching these. I love seeing the creativity. Like Becca's Bookopoly is so cool, the full like Monopoly board that she's created, and Cody's book wheel that she spins, the Skittles game, a Novel Curiosity has a novel TBR game, and there's so many interesting different ways of doing these TBR games that are so cool to see. By the way, I'll be linking those channels below in the description. And they do this like every month. That's not my plan. It's not my plan to do this every month, but I kind of am more interested in the aspect of like making a game work to create a TBR. And so I thought it'd be fun to like do that process and then maybe to try it in the future with different games. Like if there's other games that you think could make a good TBR game that you would like to see a video on, let me know and we can like test it out. But this is kind of the trial video for this. This is the pilot, if you will, of attempting to do this sort of thing. Also, I happen to really love board games and I have quite a few of them. So it seemed like fun. And while I see so many TBR games that are based off of classic board games, I know I've seen like the Game of Life before, I've seen Clue or Cluedo used before, but like classic board games. But once I discovered the world of like current board games and like strategy board games, it was all over for board games of the past for me. And I have just been loving playing those new games, so I thought it'd be fun to try to turn them into TBR games. So we're gonna try it out this month with Ticket to Ride, which is created by Alan R. Moon. This is a great game in general if you're looking for like a fun, pretty easy to learn strategy board game. This is a great one, and you can play with just 2 players, which right now, since we can't have big gatherings, is a real plus for me. When I see board games that can be played with just 2 players, I'm like, yes, definitely getting that. So I'm not going to be explaining the full rules of Ticket to Ride because I'm not using all of them to create the TBR game. It's kind of just like the inspiration behind it. So I'm using the main parts of the game and the main mechanics, but I'm not using all of it. So as far as like learning how to play Ticket to Ride, if you're curious about it, I would recommend some other videos that are going to walk you through the play of it. There are tons of great YouTube board game channels, but I will link a few videos that go over how to play Ticket to Ride in the description if you're curious about that part. Like I said, I'll talk about it a little bit, but only in how it pertains to making it into a TBR game for me for the month of February. So the board we've got here, oh boy, make sure I've got it the right way up. Can you see that? So that is our little map of the world. I'm going to just fold it up a little bit, or not map of the world. This is a map of the US and a little bit of Canada. But basically, so this is just like a side of it, just so that I can see you and also this at the same time. But as you can see, this up here is Canada, and then this is like Northwest US. So we're looking at like Washington, Oregon, down to like California. So hopefully you can kind of tell like what we're looking at here. But basically the whole thing is a map of the US. There are different versions of Ticket to Ride. This is just, I think this is the original version. So basically, as you can see, there's like these different pathways between major cities. The goal of this game is to, or at least the gameplay, is to be building like a railway that goes like to all over the US and specific areas depending on the cards you pull, things like that. There's a lot to it, but just basically the part that you need to know is that the board is a map and that you build railways using these little tracks that we've got here to make your own like railway, not station, but just actual, like the actual railway. Is there like a name for like that as a whole? I don't know, your railway empire. So I'm going to adjust this camera and then try to explain this while you're looking at the board. Here we go. So in the game, if you're actually playing it, each player starts with drawing 3 cards. This is an example of one of those cards. So we can see this one is Seattle to New York. This essentially means that you need to, in order to get the points on the card, which for this we're not worrying about points, but you need to build a railway station that makes sure that it includes Seattle and New York, so that somebody could get from Seattle to New York. It's okay if it goes like all the way down here and then eventually to New York, or if it goes straight across. Either way works, as long as it's included in your railway and it's connected, that somebody could get there. So in the game, you would draw 3 of these cards and then you would choose one to get rid of. Technically, I think you can keep all 3, but for this, I'm definitely going to be getting rid of at least one of them. And then when you have 2 of these, of course, you want to make sure that your railway is getting to all 4 of the locations that are on your card. Sometimes it'll be really convenient and they'll be really similar locations, and sometimes it won't be. Like maybe this one's Seattle to New York, but then the other one is going to be like Phoenix to Miami. That would be really annoying because you'd have like the entire US. But you might get a better third card that would work better with one of those options. So the way that I'm going to do connecting the cities and making these little segments is going to be, of course, through reading books. So each color is going to represent a different genre. Here I've got all of the genres labeled out, not in the best order because I forgot that yellow was on here until like just before this. So I kind of had to throw that in. I used genres that I would likely be most likely to have on my TBR, but I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I have a single romance novel on my TBR. But that was just like oh man, there's another color I didn't even include on here. What am I gonna do? So the different genres. Orange is literary fiction. Green is magical realism. Blue is sci-fi. Pink is contemporary. Red is fantasy. Black is nonfiction. White is thriller or mystery. The yellows are romance, and then any gray, like where it doesn't really have a color, those ones are wild cards. They can be any genre. Also, the length of the segments have to do with how long the book has to be. So for example, this blue here would have to be at least 300 pages. So each of these representing 100 pages. It could be like 600 pages if I wanted it to be, but it would have to be at least 300. So that one's a sci-fi, so it would be at least a 300-page sci-fi book in order to make this connect. So if I was trying to go from like Santa Fe to Oklahoma City, then I could choose that to be my book to get me there. Or if I wanted to maybe read something different, like maybe I wanted to read a fantasy book and I had a 400+ page fantasy book that I wanted to read, and then just like a over 200 page some other book, since this is kind of a wild card, I could also do that if that just makes more sense with what I want to read, what I'm excited about reading, you know, for any reason at all. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and pick my 3 cards to start and then discard the one that I don't want. Okay, so I've got all of those cards here. I'm gonna shuffle them up now and then choose 3 of them and then discard 1. and then I'll have to make my books work with whatever two I end up with. So hopefully they're routes that kind of could work together. I also would prefer to stick to the East Coast if at all possible, just because the books there tend to be shorter since the major cities are closer together. Okay, so I'm just gonna pick 3 off the top here. I've got Chicago to Santa Fe, Dallas to New York, and Vancouver to Santa Fe. I mean, even though the Vancouver to Santa Fe and the Chicago to Santa Fe ones are similar in that they both use Santa Fe, it's still pretty out of the way of each other. Let's see the shortest number of books I could have to read and choose both those cards. Okay, so I think I could do those cards and read 8 books minimum. Now the Dallas to New York actually doesn't seem so bad. Doing that one and doing the Chicago to Santa Fe, just because they're both around the same areas. Okay, I could do it with just reading 7 books. And there's also a lot more options, and a lot of options are for like open genre books where I don't have to do a specific genre, which seems kind of nice. And I think the books generally would be shorter on that one. Okay, so I think that's what I'm gonna do, is to do the Chicago to Santa Fe and the Dallas to New York. All right, let me show you my options as far as routes. Okay, so we've got Santa Fe, Chicago, New York, and Dallas. So they're all kind of in this area, which is helpful. To get from New York to Chicago, I could go along this line, which gives me open availability between 2 different genres, and then do this line here, also open availability. And then moving down this way to St. Louis, I could go down here to Dallas and then over and up through El Paso. Or I could come this way down and then go out here and also down here. Because it doesn't have to be one continuous line. It's just as long as your railways connect in general. So that actually might be easier. Or even like here to here and then grabbing these 2 instead of going like around this way or something. So yeah, I think those are my options. Okay, so from here on out, I will pop up a picture of the map when needed to explain where I am and what I'm reading for it. Okay, so what I think I'll do is start from New York, since I know, I'm pretty sure like the direction and the path I want to take from New York, but it's when it gets to the Dallas Santa Fe area that things get a little fuzzier. First, going from New York to Pittsburgh, I can either do White, which is a thriller or mystery that's at least 200 pages, or a magical realism that's also at least 200 pages. Now, there are quite a few books that I'm hoping to get to this month, but I think for this one I'm going to go for the thriller and do The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. I think this is quite a good deal longer than I would need it to be for this. Yeah, it's 360-ish pages, so it's definitely longer than is needed because I just need to do over 200 pages, but it's a book that I want to read this month. I'm hoping to read this and The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. So I think that this is the one that I'm going to go with. At the end of this, I'll go through all of the books and like the synopsis and everything. So that got us to Pittsburgh. Now to get to Chicago, to make sure that we're including that, I can either do an orange or a black. So that's either a nonfiction or a literary fiction. I want to do one for each. Like, I have a nonfiction and I have a literary fiction that I'd really like to be able to get to. I think for this one, I'm going to go for the nonfiction and do Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria and Other Conversations About Race. So that would be going along the black path and doing a nonfiction greater than 300 pages. I'm pretty sure this is over 400 pages, so it definitely fits. And then going from Chicago to St. Louis, we have another that's either white or green as long as it's more than 200 pages. And I think for this one, I'm going to again go with the thriller and go with The Turn of the Key, which I've got on hold at the library and I should be able to get soon. So, and then that would be all of the Ruth Ware books. I'll have read all of them that are currently out. And I plan on making a video about it, so that would work out really well for me. So I'm going to go with The Turn of the Key. And then we've got like some options. Well, actually, I think it's best if we just go straight down south to Little Rock. So I've got at least a 200-page book that is genreless, so it doesn't matter. For this one, I'm going to go with my book club pick then, which is All the Ugly and Wonderful Things. I believe that's over 300 pages, so we're good, but it's definitely over 200 pages. Okay, so now we're in Little Rock. Now, I can either go straight to Dallas from here and then go over on the red line to El Paso and then up to Santa Fe, which would add 3 more books, one of which is a fantasy that's over 400 pages. Or I could go from Little Rock to Oklahoma City, then go down to Dallas, and then also go to Santa Fe and have, instead of the fantasy, I think the only difference between that would be having a sci-fi book that's at least 300 pages long. So I think I'm gonna go south. Hold on, I need to check how long this book is. Oh my gosh, that's so close. Oh wait, it's not that close. Okay, there was another chapter after that. I was like, this book is 412 pages. It's not, it's more than that. Okay, I know which way I'm gonna go. So from, where are we right now? Little Rock? So from Little Rock, I'm gonna go to Dallas. So that's another 200 pages, genreless. For that one, I'm gonna do Who They Was, which is perfect because I wanted to read that this month anyways. And then going from Dallas to El Paso, a fantasy that is 400 pages or more. I'm going to go with The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. I was really hoping to get to this one this month, so that's good. I really wanted to start the Broken Earth trilogy because I've almost had the trilogy as a whole for a year, and that's a big rule for me and how long I keep books without reading them. So I wanted to get started on that series so that I could finish it before that year is up. And then up to Santa Fe, which I'm going to do for that, to the Lighthouse, right? How long is that book? Please be at least 200 pages. I feel like it has to be, right? Oh my gosh, it's 209 pages. Okay, I looked it up. Okay, so I think that that's my whole route. Let's talk through the books that I'm reading this month. So starting in New York and headed to Pittsburgh, I chose a thriller that's at least 200 pages, and that is The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. I don't really know what this book is about, and as you can see, it doesn't really have a synopsis. Like, this is just the places that I've reviewed it. This copy, for whatever reason, doesn't have a synopsis. But from what I can vaguely remember from people talking about it, it's about a young woman whose grandmother, maybe, or of some relation to her, has passed away. And this young woman might get something from her estate, like maybe money or a house, maybe? I don't know. But she didn't even know she existed before she passed away. Something along those lines. But it's a thriller, and I'm excited for it. So this is great. And then next, I'm going from Pittsburgh to Chicago and doing a nonfiction that's at least 300 pages. And for that, I'm going with Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria and Other Conversations About Race by Beverly Tatum. This, I believe, is more about like the psychology behind racism and racial identity. Yeah. So I think that Tatum is a psychologist. We see here that she's got a PhD. And it's specific to the US, I'm pretty sure. So I'm looking forward to reading this, especially since it is Black History Month. So that works out really well. Next, I'm going from Chicago to St. Louis and doing another thriller that's at least 200 pages. And for that, I'm doing The Turn of the Key, which I am borrowing from the library. This is by Ruth Ware. And I'm now realizing I have no idea what it's about. Okay, so it sounds like we have a young woman who is going to be a live-in nanny with a staggeringly generous salary. And that the home is like a smart home that has like a lot of modern things in it, but turns out there's a lot more going on that she doesn't know about. So that one sounds good. Once again, I'm just excited. Like, I like thrillers, so I'm excited about it. And that one should be ready for me at the library soon. So yay. So next, going from St. Louis to Little Rock, which is genreless, at least 200 pages. And for this one, I went with All the Ugly and Wonderful Things, which is my book club pick, and also one that I don't know what it's about. So let's see. A beautiful and provocative love story between two unlikely people and the hard-won relationship that elevates them above the Midwestern meth lab backdrop of their lives. Whoa, that took a turn I did not expect. As the daughter of a drug dealer, Wavy knows not to trust people, not even her own parents. It's safer to keep her mouth shut and stay out of sight. Struggling to raise her little brother, Donald, 8-year-old Wavy is the only responsible adult around. Ooh. Okay. Yeah, this seems like it's going to be a rough and heart-wrenching story. Then going from Little Rock to Dallas, another 200-page genreless book. In that, like, I can pick what genre it is. And for this one, I went with Who They Was, which is one of the Booker longlisted books from 2020 that I have not yet gotten to. It's been a long time since I've talked about what this book is about, but I believe in the past I've really just used the synopsis itself that's like in the front sleeve of the book to describe it, because it's just so beautiful and I love the way it's written so much. This is a story about what it's like to exist in the moment, about boys too eager to become men, growing up in the hidden war zones of big cities, and the girls trying to make it their own way. This is a story of reputations made and lost, of violence and vengeance, and never counting the cost. This is a story of concrete towers and blank-eyed windows, of endless nights in police stations and prison cells, of brotherhood and betrayal. This is about the boredom, the rush, the despair, the fear, and the hope. This is about what's left behind. I mean, there's no way that I could explain what this is about better than that. Next, going from Dallas to El Paso and reading at least a 400-page fantasy book, which is going to be The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. I don't at all remember what this is about. Like I said, I got the Broken Earth trilogy quite a while ago, and I think this is about how there's like this fifth season where like, so there's the regular 4 seasons on Earth, or maybe not Earth, but a planet. I don't know if this is set on Earth. And then the 5th season is like the end of the world, or like an apocalypse happens, but then this coming 5th season is going to be like the actual end of the world or something. I don't know. This is the way the world ends for the last time. That's what it says on the back. So yeah, something along those lines. I apologize if that's like the worst description of this book ever, but everybody loves it and says it's so good. So I'm really excited about it. This was actually a book club book like maybe 2 years ago for my book club, and I didn't read it, and I really regretted it because my entire book club loved it. Like everybody that read it loved it. Okay, and then lastly, just going up north from El Paso to Santa Fe for another up to me genreless book. I actually really lucked out because there are like ways to go through the center of the US that would mean I would have to be like picking from genres. But the way that I went, I got to pick like a lot of books that didn't have to be a specific genre, which is really convenient. But anyways, going from El Paso to Santa Fe, making sure that it's at least over 200 pages. That's the only requirement. I went with To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. And I don't know what that's about. Why are there so many books on this one that I don't know what they're about? The serene and maternal Mrs. Ramsay, the tragic yet absurd Mr. Ramsay, and their children and assorted guests are on holiday on the Isle of Skye. From the seemingly trivial postponement of a visit to a nearby lighthouse, Woolf constructs a remarkable, moving examination of the complex tension and allegiances of family life and the conflict between men and women. Yeah, this one, obviously a classic. I'm sure you've heard of it. But this is actually the next book I'm reading from my book bucket list poster that has like 100 scratch off things for books to read before you die. This is one of them that's on there, so I plan on reading it, making a review on it, as I did with the last book that I read from it, which was Middlemarch. And then after that, I get to pick what book I'm going to read next, which is actually me randomly generating a number to pick 2 books from it, and then my Instagram ends up picking between those 2 books which book I'm reading next. So they picked for me To the Lighthouse. I don't even remember what other book it was up against at this point. It was so long ago that happened, but this year I'm going to be better about reading this. So I'm so glad that I was able to add it to this game, and also my book club book. So this is really successful for me. And then there's not really anything that like I wanted to get on this list that isn't. However, I do want to make sure that I'm making progress in my oldest books, like the books that have been on my TBR the longest, and none of these are really from then. Well, The Death of Mrs. Westaway, I think I got that May of last year, so that it's almost at a full year, so that's a good one to add. But I have a few that are from before then that I would like to get to. So I think that I'm gonna also try to do Bluebeard by Kurt Vonnegut, and then also The Last Interview, which is also a Kurt Vonnegut. I already started The Last Interview. I tried to read it in January, but I just didn't get done with it. But it's really short. It's just his last interview and then a couple other interviews, and since it's written in an interview style, it's really easy to get through. And then also I want to read Bluebeard, which is about a 71-year-old man who wants to be left alone on his Long Island estate with the secret he has locked inside his potato barn. And then like some woman ends up coming to him, and like he starts like telling her his life story or something. So I think I'm gonna also try to read these books too, at least to finish The Last Interview, but hopefully to read this book as well. But anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this. And is there another game that you would like to see me attempt to turn into a TBR game? Are you excited about this one? Did it make sense? Did I do a good job of explaining it? I'm really terrified I didn't. I think that's going to be the hardest part of if I do like more videos like this. And you know, let me know, should I do more videos like this? Let me know in the comments. Is there anything that you would do to improve this one? Because I do kind of want to include at the end of February, when I talk about my wrap up and my TBR that I got from this game, if there's anything that I would change about it, or if there's any suggestions in the comments that were particularly notable, so that if anybody did want to play this game as a TBR game in the future, then they could do that easily, and then also have like the good suggestions of, you know, multiple minds thinking together about it. But I think that the one that I've come up with is pretty fun, and it works really well, like having the different genres, but then there's so many areas or like different directions you can go that could have books that you don't need a specific genre for. And like if you want to do a roundabout way that makes sure that you're reading shorter books but more of them, or longer books but they're the genres you like, then like you can do that, which is kind of cool. But basically at the end of the month I will do a little wrap up of how it went, talk through the books. Hopefully I will have gotten through them all. But anyways, I hope that you did enjoy this video, and if you did, please consider subscribing, and then I will see you in the next one. Bye!